Hey guys, this is Joe. Welcome back. Welcome to the 18th tutorial of Unity Code Tutorials. The first thing I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to add sound to the explosion of the projectile. So just a quick recap. It's actually been a long time since I've done a video. So let's shoot some projectiles here. If I could hit the tank, that'd be cool. Okay, so we added an explosion, right? Now hear the sound of the explosion of the tank, but there's no sound when the projectiles explode. So the reason for that is if we come to our projectile explosion right here, this is what happens. See the tank explosion, we have an audio source. The projectile explosion we don't. So all we want to do here, even for now, we're just going to use the same explosion sound. You can always change it out later, but it's as simple as just dropping a different clip in here. So what I want to I want to do here, click the tank explosion, come here, copy the component by right clicking, and then we're going to go to the projectile explosion and then just right click on one of the other components. Paste component is new, doesn't affect the one you right click on, it's just how you get to the menu. Now once we're here, play and awake is still enabled. Same audio clip is enabled, and for now we're going to keep it that way. Okay, so now that we've changed the prefab, we want to save our project just in case something goes wrong when I test it. Okay, so I'm just going to let the tank shoot me. So, same. Now, we're going to want that to be a smaller explosion sound than when the tank explodes, obviously. So what we can do is we can mess with our settings here. The volume, why don't we just put this down to 0.7 for the projectile, and that will change that. It's the only thing we really need to change. You can mess with these other settings. Feel free to. This has to do with how far away you can hear the sound from, whether is it 2D or 3D. We have it as a spatial blend, but we have it partially 2D, partially 3D. So no matter how far away you are, you'll be able to hear it a little bit, but it's mostly 3D, which means it mostly is dependent on how close you are to the source. Anyways, okay, that was easy. We got a sound on there. Now, in the last video, we created a different projectile type, right? So notice here in the menu here, what's the projectile type? If I hit C, it should change it back and forth. Now, I think the reason it's not showing that is because we haven't set our GUI up properly yet. So why don't we go in the scene, go under the canvas, projectile type, focus on that. Now it's very possible that it's just being cut off. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to test this with this selected. So right now it's normal, and it changes to new turret. That's the other type that we created. We want it to show out here, right? So what we can do, spread this out, okay? In order to save it, gotta do it when it's not in play mode. Just spread this out, just like that. Now it starts out in normal, so I can go ahead and type that in if I want to. We're going to save the scene. It's probably why it didn't do it, is because it didn't save the scene last time. Now it's going to update the text anyways, so it doesn't matter. But now if I hit C, it's going to change, right? Which type are we shooting? Now we haven't actually changed yet which projectile gets shot. Because what that does, remember, is in our game manager, it changes this variable here, the current projectile type. So we need to go to where projectiles are shot from, which is the turret script. When we hit the F key right here, we're shooting a projectile, which is referenced up here, but there's only one. So we need to have our different types, right? Is that the best way to do that? For now, I think so. Can do like an array or whatnot. That would be a way to do it, but we do want to have just a name for what's going on. An array would be basically one variable that contains multiple values. We could make a list. I think we've done lists before, but for this, what I would do is just create another variable, especially since we only have two of them right now. So we're going to have another game object variable. Now first of all, this isn't just projectile anymore. We're going to right click refactor, always do it that way. Name that, that'll rename it everywhere it's referenced. And this next one is going to be new turret projectile. It's good to have it match. Remember in our classes script, I believe is where it is. Let's go take a look at that. Being that that's what this is based on. We have normal and new turret. So we're calling it new turret there. So I'm going to drag this over here just so it can be. Hold on. That's not what I wanted. Just want it right here. Just get rid of what we don't need for right now. Okay, so normal and new turret, normal and new turret. It matches, right? So now instead of just willy-nilly creating a projectile here, we have to go to the game manager and see which type. So we're going to use the ternary operator to do that, being that there's only two right now. Or do we want to do it? No, we're not going to do that, because we do plan on having more types. And even if we don't, it's a possibility that we might end up having more, unless we're absolutely sure that we're never going to have another type. So what we're going to do is use a switch statement. Now I think we've done switch statements before, I'm pretty sure. Oh, that gives me a good opportunity to show you this. If I haven't done this, you can just do search and find. Well, no. Find in files is what we want to do. Search the whole thing. Now it's going to give us scripts that we didn't actually write, but they're just part of the packages that we downloaded. Maybe we haven't done a switch statement. Maybe not. It's okay. Or it's a good time that we do it now. Okay, so when we go to fire, switch statement, you type the word switch, which means it's a switch in the tracks depending on the value of what we put in here. So what we're going to put in here is the game manager instance. We're going to get the instance of that, and then the current projectile type. And then what we do is we type the word case. Normally I would indent, but for switch statements I leave case out here just because I don't know. Doesn't matter. You can do it either way. So we're going to say you type the word case, and then you put a value that this could possibly be. Okay? So the type, we can always go back here if we forget what it is. It's called projectile type. So projectile type, normal, and you put a colon, and then I just hit enter. So this is what we're already doing, right? I'm going to cut that there because that's what we've been doing. Now when you're done, you have to hit break. If you're done with this case, you hit break. Because that means, okay, we're done with the switch statement, we're going to move on. If you don't put that, it will throw an error. Then we can double space, hit case, it automatically puts it to the left. Projectile type, new turret is the other one that we need to do. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and paste that, except instead of normal projectile, new turret projectile is what we want to put in there. Okay, now don't forget our break statement. Excuse me for a second. Here we go. So we have our code to spawn the different types of projectiles. So now the only thing left to do is to actually create the other projectile, which we don't have yet. Okay, so we have turret projectile. So here's what we're going to do. Instead of calling it turret projectile, we're going to call it normal projectile, because it will match what we're trying to do. It's going to match the scheme, the naming scheme. Control D will duplicate it. So if I do that, now I have another one. Now this isn't going to be normal projectile. This is going to be new turret projectile. Take the one away, Now, right now it's exactly the same. So we're going to want to change this a little. We do want to use the projectile script, of course. It is a projectile. But we want to change something about it, right? So if we take this, why don't we bring it out here, zoom in on it, just change it a little bit. Now this is kind of a big deal, right? Let's scale it up, because it's going to create a whole new turret. It shouldn't just be this tiny little ball. Okay, so we can either scale it up there or whatever. We're gonna do it right here. Now I don't think it should be black. I think it should be green, because it's kind of like a, it's creating a new turret. So let's just change it. So instead of using this turret projectile material, let's take the turret projectile material, duplicate it, and we'll do new turret projectile. Okay, so now if we come here, what we want to do is we want to add that new turret projectile material to the mesh renderer right here. Now we can open up the new turret projectile. We're going to change the color to green. Just seems to make more sense. Now there's other stuff you can do with this visually. This tutorial isn't really about visual stuff. I might play around in the future with that, but right now I'm just going to change the color so that we can see distinctly that it's something different. So now we have our different projectile. Okay, so if we click here, go apply, now we have what we need. So now what we have to do is go to the turret, and since we changed that name, we have to reassign that one too. So what we want to do is take the normal projectile and put it in here, take the new turret projectile, put it in here, and we want to apply this to that prefab. We also want to save the scene. Since we've been messing with prefabs, you also want to save the project. Okay, so now it should shoot that other one. It probably won't do anything, right? If we go to new turret projectile, it's going to think, I guess, that it's one of those other ones. It's going to follow the projectile script. So it's going to have the same tag, right? So if it hits a tank, it's still going to explode. It's still going to do all that stuff. We might want to change that now and not just have it be a tag, but actually have some more functionality in there. So things will become interesting now. So, right, we've got the normals. So let's go ahead and take that tank out so it doesn't bother us. Okay, so we can shoot the normals. Alright, now the enemy manager is down, so we're not going to get any more tanks. We're going to go ahead and come here, turn the enemy manager on. It's because I might want to experiment with those. But most importantly, let's test what was going on here. So if I hit C, now it's new turret, right? So now we're shooting these other projectiles. Now, of course, this isn't the way we want them to behave, but I just want you to see. If I shoot a tank down with it, it's still going to shoot the tanks down. Now, that's not what we want. In fact, we want them to have gravity. But we do have them. We are shooting a different projectile. That was our goal here. So we accomplished our goal. So what we want to do now is we want to change how they behave, because they don't deal damage. So we want to make it to where if they collide with a tank, or we could do it where they deal damage. It could actually annihilate the tank, and then it could create a new turret. That sounds a little complicated for right now, though. So I think what we're going to do is we're just going to make it create a new turret when it lands on the ground. Okay? So what we need to do is we need to add some things to our projectile script. We need to be able to tell the projectile what kind of projectile it is. Now the way we can do that, see, we have our speed, we have our strength. I think before both of those we should have a projectile type. And we'll just say the type. That's That's what we're going to call this, and it will default to projectile type.normal. Okay, so put that in our script and we come back out here. You're going to notice that if we go now to the normal projectile, we look here, I mean it's already normal, but then this one we have to change. We can go here, we get a drop down because it's an enum. That's just one of the things that enums do for us in Unity. So it's a new turret. So now when things are hit by projectiles, what can happen? Because you have to remember, projectiles can also be shot by tanks. Tank projectile, that also has the projectile script, right? But it has a different tag, or no, it has projectile tag. Because if we were to shoot one of our other tanks now, it would do damage. And actually, that's the way we want it right now. Because if you shoot yourself, I mean, we're going to leave that alone right now. We're just going to handle problems as they arise. So, let's not worry about that. But, let's say we don't want damage to be done if we hit a tank with a new turret. Maybe because the skill would be, okay, we have to shoot this thing and create a new turret where there's not a tank. Let's say that that's the goal. So if we were to look at our vehicle script, which I'm tempted to just call that tank script, call it tank. You know what, we're gonna refactor this, and we're just gonna call it tank. Okay. Now, if you come here and do save all, that will save everything that's open, because if that was referenced vehicle, if that was referenced in anything else that was open here, you also have to save it there. So just get used to doing that whenever you do a refactor of something that could be somewhere else. If you don't know, just do it, just to be safe. Okay, anyways, in our tank script here, where do we see that it is talked about where projectiles come into play in the script? On collision, right? If we're hit, if the tag is a projectile, you take the hit points away, and so on and so forth. So what we could do, right, see, we have to get this projectile, we have to get this in order to see what's going on. So here's what we could do. We can make a variable projectile and then use this to get the projectile, right? Because instead of calling get component over and over again, it's better to get the variable so you have a reference to it right here. Okay, so now this becomes projectile, right? Go ahead and copy and paste that. Now maybe we only want these to happen if it's, I mean, depending on what kind of projectile it is. If it's a normal projectile, which does damage to things. Okay, so here's what we can do. We can say if projectile, which this is now a reference to the projectile that hit us, because we got the component of the projectile. So now we have lower projectile, just like lowercase transform and uppercase transform. Same thing. We just did it ourselves here. So projectile, the type, if this equals to projectile type dot normal, then we would take these, cut them, paste them, save the script. If that's the case, then we're going to do that, right? If not, what's going to happen is the projectile is just going to bounce off of it, probably, right? It's not going to be destroyed, so it's probably just going to bounce off. Now we can handle that however we want. But just to show you how this works, that means that now the tank will not be affected by those, but a turret still would. If you shoot another turret, it still is going to affect it the other way because we haven't gotten the turret script. Now, that could get kind of confusing if you have a lot of different objects that can be hit by different things, right? So there would probably be a better way to do that. We'll get to that when we get there. Okay, so that tank, it doesn't appear to be moving, does it? Why isn't it moving? Why is that tank not moving? This is not moving. The associated script. Oh, you know what happened? We changed the name of that script. So now what we have to do is we have to come in here, we have to remove the component, we have to add a component, add the tank script, and we have to redo everything. So I should not have done that. I shouldn't have done that, I'm sorry. Okay, anyways, what do we need here? Tank explosion, shrapnel cube, projectile will be the tank projectile, fire point, come down in here, fire points, probably going to have to change these things here too. Right, so if we come here and reassign the cannon, right, apply it, blah blah blah. No, it's just simply not working right because the rotation speed is too slow, I guess. Okay. Things have gone horribly wrong. Horribly wrong. And the reason for that, I think, is we assigned the wrong thing to the cannon. Because the cannon is in fact the cannon root. That's who we want to rotate. I really hope that was the problem. Okay, so let's go here. That was the problem. Good. Okay, let's start over. Let's just crank this up a little bit. It doesn't really matter right now, does it? Okay. Look, let's change this. Are those going to do anything? When I hit the tank, they just bounce off. So our script worked. That's what we wanted, because we didn't want those to do anything. Okay, this video is getting kind of long, so I'm going to go ahead and cut it off here. And in the next video, we're going to continue on. We're going to make those actually create a new turret when they should. We're going to decide what to do when they hit something. I think it'd be cool if they just kind of either dissipate or, yeah, we're just going to do that. They're not going to amount to anything if they hit something, because that will be the skill, you know. Find an area where you can build a turret. You can't build a turret right on top of the enemy, right? Makes sense. Okay, so that's what we're going to do, and then we're going to have multiple turrets in the scene, and things are going to get more interesting. So that will be in the next video, which will be number 19. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.